the fair will be hosted. So to go over the agenda today, you will first hear from myself, Christiana Graves. I am the Assistant Director of International Study at Wellesley College, and you will also hear from Hannah in the Study Abroad Office at Wesleyan University. And we will go over just some general advice and suggestions for navigating the wide variety of options available to you for study abroad. And then we will hear directly from students from Wellesley and Wesleyan, and they will share what their experience was like as they narrowed down their program choices and found the program that was right for them. And then you will have a chance to ask questions directly to our panelists, and then we will also provide some next steps as you look ahead to the fair and the application process for study abroad. All right, so before we dive too far into our suggestions for selecting a study abroad program, we do want to ask that you make sure to confer with your home university regarding which programs are approved at your specific institution. Every institution does have its own suite of pre-approved study abroad programs, so it is important to be familiar with your specific institution's policies surrounding that, as well as their policies surrounding deadlines. There is often an initial deadline that will occur with your home institution by which you need to get the initial approval to study abroad, and that can vary depending on what your school is. And also policies about eligibility and credit transfer can also vary in terms of the minimum GPA required to study abroad, what your home institution requires in terms of prior language preparation before you go abroad. And the application process, again, can vary, especially in terms of what might be required for you to get that initial approval from your home institution before you can start applying directly to study abroad programs.
Okay, so now that we've kind of set those guidelines, let's go ahead and dive in with this big question of how do you pick a study abroad program? So with so many options, one of the most difficult parts of studying abroad is actually figuring out where you want to go. And we know that this process can be very overwhelming, but it helps to start to think about this in terms of your major. So whether you're already declared major or what your major may be, and then identify some programs that work well with that major. However, I do want to say that it is possible to go on a program where you're not just taking major courses. Maybe you won't even take a major course while you're abroad. But it's important to work with your advisor to kind of set and see kind of what makes sense for your academic plan and whether you need to take major courses abroad, or if you have enough flexibility in your schedule where you don't necessarily have to take major courses or very many. However, with study abroad, obviously it is study abroad, so academics first, but there are many other things to take into consideration. So things like, do you want to live with a host family while you're abroad? Do you want to live in a rural or an urban setting? Do you want to work independently? Or do you want to have opportunities to volunteer in the local community? There are lots of different things to take into consideration when studying abroad. And I'm sure our panelists will talk about what their main priorities were and kind of how they navigated that search process based on those priorities that they have.
And to help you get started, we also wanted to provide some information on various program types available to you. Often, study abroad programs can be categorized into specific models. One option is to directly enroll in an overseas college or university as a visiting or affiliate student. And this opportunity allows you to take the same courses as the local degree students, and it offers the highest level of immersion into a foreign university system. Some of these opportunities might be in English-speaking destinations, but you might also have the option to do this in a foreign language destination if you have enough proficiency in the foreign language. Another type of program is programs designed specifically for American or students from US institutions, which may or may not be affiliated with a foreign university abroad. So often these programs involve you taking courses with your cohort of other students who are also studying abroad from US institutions. Often these programs are theme-based, and they could be in fields such as economic development, gender studies, sustainability. And these programs do tend to have more built-in support structures because these programs often consist of a fairly small cohort, particularly when you compare them to a direct enroll program in an institution abroad in which you might be one of several hundred international students at that university. So the programs that are more designed for US students are also particularly common when looking for program options in countries whose primary language is not commonly studied at US universities. In locations such as this, access to foreign university courses might be more limited. So this might be one of the reasons why for a specific location, you might find programs more in the second category as opposed to the first category. Finally, the mixed model is a common program model for study abroad and is best described as a blend of the first two models. Often these programs are foreign language programs where you might have a handful of courses that are offered just for students in your program in which you review foreign language, grammar, writing, but you would also have the opportunity to take one or two courses alongside local students at a foreign university in the local language. And these foreign university courses give you the chance to use your language skills to pursue courses that might be more directly related to other academic areas. So for example, if you are a science major who wants to improve your foreign language skills, the foreign university courses would give you the chance to study science alongside local students and in a foreign language.
Some things to keep in mind as you start to dig into this exciting world of study abroad options. So first, if your goal is to learn or master a foreign language, you should really select a program that requires the use of that target language all of the time, as much as possible. Avoid programs with courses taught in English. Your institution actually may have policies regarding language for study abroad. So make sure you are aware of those policies and those requirements. You can probably find them on your study abroad office's website, or you can make an appointment with an advisor to learn about any language requirements. So if you are a first-year student and you're just starting out, but say you really want to study abroad in Italy, it might be that your institution requires a certain level of Italian prior to your going on that program. So you will want to go ahead and start taking those Italian classes, for example. So make sure you check your home institution's language policies for that. But speaking of language, so many students think it would be unrealistic to take like a math class or an economics course in another language. But as Christiana and I can attest, as study abroad, people who work in the field of study abroad, it's really pretty incredible how that 24/7 immersion in a language can actually, students actually perform very well typically in those language courses, those content courses. And as Christiana said, some programs do the mixed model courses. You might take some courses in a foreign language at an institution, and then you might have other courses such as grammar courses just for the students on your program. So you always have that language support while you're abroad. So if that's something you're looking for, take that into consideration. And of course, the longer you go abroad, the more you'll be able to progress. So students who don't go abroad for a full year really do make even more than double the progress of students who are only able to go abroad for a single semester.
And here we have some suggestions for if you have a major that is maybe not in a foreign language and you are very interested in a study abroad experience that might be more focused on that major. Some suggestions we have are to look first for thematic programs that do focus on your area of specialization, or you could focus on universities abroad that have a broad curriculum in your major area. And often a helpful way to find out about what these options might be is to talk to faculty in your department and see if they have any connections abroad or recommendations for foreign universities that might be well suited to your academic interests. And then your study abroad office can also provide support and show you programs that fit well within your major, and make sure that the study abroad office and the academic departments as well are all on the same page. Some majors might require more advanced planning. One example of this would be if you are a pre-med student, there could be specific requirements that can only be satisfied on your home campus. So you do need to be mindful of what courses you can take abroad and what really does need to be done at your home institution. There are majors, however, like history or maybe psychology, which could be a little bit more easy to find abroad. Regardless of what your major is, I want to stress that speaking with your advisors and with your major advisor and study abroad advisors is going to really help you throughout this process. And regardless of your major, if you do plan ahead in advance and make sure that you are making all of the necessary preparations, then it can go smoothly. And so we will next speak about just some additional considerations as you are putting together your academic plan and trying to integrate study abroad into that plan. You will need to be mindful of the fact that you really are trying to put together the best 4-year experience you can. And because of this, study abroad should not really be considered as time off from academic learning. It could be, depending on your home institution's policies, a great way to fulfill certain requirements for graduation and to really hone in on a certain academic interest that you might not be able to pursue in much detail at your home campus. And again, it is important to consider what requirements can be fulfilled abroad and what should be done at home. Lab requirements, for example, could be another example of a requirement that would be difficult to fulfill abroad.
Okay, when to go abroad. So we talked about some of the different factors that you should take into consideration, but when to go is just as important. So when thinking about when to go abroad, as we mentioned, try to think about taking the full year to go abroad first. See if that might be feasible for you. Being away for a full year really does allow you to take full advantage of the experience in terms of linguistic, cultural, academic adjustment. But please also note that your institution may actually have some programs that are only available for the full year. And it may not be possible to do certain programs just for one term. So take a look at your institution or speak with your advisor to see if there are any programs that are just limited to the full year. However, if a full year isn't realistic or doesn't appeal to you, that's okay. Look next at going for a full semester, so the fall or the spring semester. There's lots of goods and maybe challenges with going abroad for different semesters, and it can vary from institution to institution. So chat with your advisor about that, maybe about the benefits of going over one semester over another. However, in most cases, if you do go in the fall, you will start the school year when the locals start. Again, that depends on where you're going in the world, but that's often the case. Planning for internships or graduate school tests are typically easier to manage if you are on campus during the spring. You'll have more time to get ready for your experience if you go in the fall because you have the full summer. There's also the possibility to extend your study abroad to a second semester if you're interested. That's also an option, in the spring, but it could be a little different. But there are benefits to the spring as well. So for example, the Southern Hemisphere has the reverse calendar. There's also more time to travel after the semester concludes in the spring. You can combine your spring study abroad with a summer internship, for example. So there's lots of benefits to either semester. But again, chat with your study abroad advisor, because there might be some things on campus, things that you might be missing, that you want to take into consideration about when you want to go abroad. But really start with full year, then think about semester. If those options don't work for you, we still want you to go abroad. There's still so many options. So there's summer or winter options. This is a particularly good option if you are an athlete, campus athlete who has a sports season that goes across the fall and the spring. So you can't go abroad for a full year or a full semester. So a summer or winter program might be a great option for you. It's also a way to earn credit in a shorter amount of time. And two, I would check with your study abroad office and see how many times you can go abroad during your undergrad experience. You might be able to go abroad for a semester and a summer, so chat with your advisor about that, because if you can go abroad more than once, why not?
All right, and now we will get to the part I'm sure you are eagerly awaiting. We have 4 panelists, again, representing both Wellesley and Wesleyan. And why don't we allow each of you to introduce yourselves now, and maybe we can just go in the order that you are pictured on the slide.
Hi, my name is Rose. I'm a senior at Wesleyan. I'm a molecular biology major, and I'm pre-med. So anything else I should say?
I think that's perfect. Why don't you each of you say where you went abroad as well, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Yeah, and I was abroad in Copenhagen last fall.
Hi, my name is Ria, and I'm a junior at Wesleyan. I'm majoring in studio art and anthropology, and I went abroad on a semester sailing voyage in the summer of 2019 that sailed from Tahiti to Australia.
Hi, I'm Zara. I'm a senior. I'm a senior at Wellesley. I major in economics and minor in environmental studies. And I went abroad in the Czech Republic and then studied in some countries around it as part of the program.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a senior at Wellesley College. I was abroad in London last spring at LAMDA, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, and I'm a double major in English and theater studies.
Awesome, great. Well, thank you all for being a part of our panel today. Again, we'll ask you all a few questions, but to our attendees here today, if you think of any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we will address those in just a little bit. So my first question for our panelists is, when you were exploring study abroad programs, what program features were most important to you and why? So let's see, how about Hannah, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So I kind of went a weird route with my study abroad in that I wanted to go to a conservatory acting school, which not a lot of people from Wellesley go to. And so that kind of added a lot of specificity to my search in and of itself. I also knew that I wanted to be in London, which again narrowed it down further. I wanted to be in London mainly because I think the theater there is really interesting and new and fresh, and I wanted to learn through school, but also learn by going to see as many productions of things as I could. So it was just really convenient for me to find a school in London. Then I've narrowed it down some more based on the curriculums the schools were offering, is this contemporary drama, is it classical? And is the audition process going to be hugely time consuming and potentially expensive? So that was kind of my process.
See, Rose, you want to go next?
Sure. The biggest thing for me was being able to take classes towards my major, and that helped me like on the pre-med track. As I said, I'm a molecular biology and biochem major, and I was also kind of behind in that I didn't know that right at the beginning of freshman year, so I still have requirements to fulfill. And so I was looking at programs that would help me fulfill that, and that also meant programs that were in English, because I was like, I had taken some French, and so had met that baseline requirement to be able to go to a French-speaking country, but was not comfortable enough to take biochemistry in French, so that narrowed it down. I was also really interested in being able to travel beyond just where my program was. And that was something that the program I went to, DIS Copenhagen, they make as an integral part of their program, in that you have lots of time to travel, and there's travel built in also. So through my core course, I went to Vienna and I went to Budapest, and traveled through Denmark a bit as well. So yeah, those are the two big things for me.
Awesome, thanks. Zara?
Yeah, so I mainly looked at like two things. They were the most important things for me, were the activities outside of academics in the program, because as an econ major, a lot of econ is pretty straightforward. And the second thing I was looking at was the safety of the place I was going to, especially as like a queer woman of color. I wanted to make sure that I was going to be okay, both physically and mentally, which I think is really important with study abroad. And so I sort of, one day I was just like, safest cities in the world, and Prague was one of those cities. And I just sort of looked into programs in Prague, and the one I attended had a lot of travel, a lot of like Eastern European like traditions that you could like be a part of. Thought it was really cool. And that's how I found my program.
Awesome, thanks. Ria?
When I was looking for study abroad, I wasn't really sure what I wanted, because I went abroad the summer of my freshman year, so I didn't really have much academic direction at that point. But I was just looking for programs that involved some sort of like experiential learning and were multi-sided and would allow me to travel. And I was looking at semester when I was planning on doing a gap year after high school, so that was at the back of my mind anyways. So I applied to that, and I was looking at a bunch of other like similar sailing / like sea programs. Semester at Sea was one of them, and Sea Semester was one of them. But I think the program I ended up going with was perhaps the most hands-on in terms of like learning how to like sail and living on a sailboat. And also like I took 4 classes on the program, and the actual classes and the courses were very much like based in like experiential learning. I think that was also like unique about the program and set it apart from both like Semester at Sea and Sea Semester.
Great, thank you everyone. I think our panelist responses really show the wide variety of factors that you can consider when you're narrowing down your program options. There are academic preferences and needs that you would have, but you also want to consider the experiential opportunities as well available in the program, what you want to be able to do outside of class, as Hannah and I spoke about a little bit earlier. So I will move on to the next question, and maybe we'll just go in the reverse order so we can start with Ria. And I will now ask, so once you knew kind of what you were looking for, what was really helpful for you in finding that particular program? How did you know that it was an available option? Where did you first hear about it? Was it your FAIR? Was it an appointment with your study abroad advisor? And then once you did become aware of it being an option, what else did you do to really find out more about that, if it was speaking with past students or additional resources like that?
So like I said, I already knew about the program since high school and it was in the back of my mind. So I didn't have to do a lot of research to like find a program that I wanted to do once I got into college. I think I heard about it in high school for like a similar like gap year fair or like study abroad fair, and it stuck. And then I was really apprehensive going into the program because it just sounded so unique and I didn't know what it entailed or like whether I'd be able to do it. So I reached out to like a bunch of like student groups that I was on and kept posting if like anyone had been to this program or like done similar things and how they felt about it. And I spoke to past students about it, which was extremely helpful. I had a better I think if I hadn't spoken to past students and gone in without that knowledge, it would have like what the program actually entailed would have really caught me off guard and maybe been a lot harder. But I had time to like mentally prepare and like understand what the program was about, so that could like so I could adjust my expectations accordingly. And I also spoke to the people organizing the program themselves. So I think it was organized by global expedition groups, and I did a lot of like back and forth calls with them with like questions and like figuring out logistical stuff and like just concerns about the program.
Great. Zara?
Yeah, so like I said, I was Googling things, and then I wanted to know more about it. I couldn't find anyone at Wellesley on my own who had gone to Prague. I think you actually put me in touch with someone who had done it before. But I also went to a professor who had actually studied in Prague when they were in college, and they were just like super helpful with like getting to know what the experience might be like.
Thank you. And now Rose.
Yeah, I think I first heard about the study abroad program. I ended up going on for my intro chemistry TA my first year. We had just, I didn't like finish doing our homework early, and she just brought up how much fun she had had in Copenhagen the last semester. And so that was really great to hear that from someone that was studying a similar thing that I was interested in, to know that was a possibility for me. And then later, I think maybe like the next semester, I ended up having an advisor meeting with the pre-med advisor here on campus and mentioning wanting to study abroad, and she knew about DIS. So she also pointed me in that direction. And then from there, I think I just did like my own research on their website and found out about all of their classes. And then also I knew it's a pretty popular program at Wesleyan for people to go on. So then I ended up finding people on my Frisbee team who had gone to DIS. So.
Yeah, there weren't any students at Wellesley who had previously been to the program that I ended up going to. And I ended up speaking to a lot of professors in the theater studies department and kind of sussing out their thoughts. I did a lot of research on my own. We have a Facebook group called Wellesley in Entertainment, which I ended up asking some people's opinions from. But yeah, I think I kind of had to go outside of the conventional international studies advising routes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. And I hope this is cool because everyone kind of found their programs in different ways. And some people in this panel went on a program where many other students that they know or that they know it's a popular program for their institution, many of those students, or like Rose was saying, you know, that's how she heard of the program. But there are also, you know, panelists here like Hannah and Zara who didn't know any other students who had attended the program. And yet they still chose that program. So just because you find a program that doesn't maybe have someone at your institution who has gone, you know, on that program in the past, have that conversation with your advisor, because as you can see, we have panelists right here who did the research and found that it was the right program for them. So just because many of your friends or peers have gone on a certain program doesn't necessarily mean it's the best fit for you. So that's where your study abroad advisor can really come and help you with that. Awesome, thank you, panelists. Our next question is a fun one. So in what ways did your study abroad program differ from your expectations? And what did you learn from that experience? Let's see, let's start with Zara. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So one of the main things is that like I really thought I knew how to be independent college girl, but going to university that was so different from my own, I think really taught me how to be an independent in a different way. I got sort of a more classic college experience, which has like pros and cons to it, but like taking public transportation to get to class was something I was not used to doing, and things along that line. So that was really different, but I really enjoyed it. So,
Ria?
I think like I was shocked in terms of the people. Like I expected everyone who signed up for my study abroad program to like be aware of the duties on board and like how hard sort of life would be like managing a sailboat, but it seemed like that was really not the case, and people were just like tripping all the time, and that just like got to be really hard. It was just like a hard trip in general, and to be surrounded by people who like complaining all the time and like weren't doing things, and that made the whole process of like running a boat much slower and much harder. So I was really surprised by that, which wasn't pleasant. And I was also surprised by like seasickness. I was extremely seasick throughout, so that made things a lot harder as well, because I was just like puking my lungs out. Yeah.
What did you learn as a result of
What
puking your lungs out?
I learned that I'm capable of a lot more than I thought I was capable of going in terms of like handling social discomfort and like bodily discomfort, and still getting my duties done and like my academic work done as well.
Thanks, Ria. Hannah?
Yeah, I had a really good time in my academic life, but I ended up having a number of strange challenges which I was not expecting in my residential life, which included bed bugs and getting evicted. So I really had to learn how to be an advocate for myself and like do what I needed to do to figure out how I was going to make it through the next 2.5 months. So that was probably the most surprising part for me. Learning how to be independent and like not a real adult, but closer to a real adult.
Awesome. And Rose?
I think the most surprising thing for me was showing up and realizing that that my program was kind of just like a university of Americans, just like kind of plopped in the middle of Copenhagen. And so I already felt like I was like going out on my own, like doing this new thing. But then like looking around, it didn't feel that different from home. And so initially that was kind of disappointing because I was in a homestay, which was really exciting because there was that, I had that like cultural exchange in that way, and they were great. But then I realized like I couldn't just like getting on the plane to go to Copenhagen, that wasn't really as much of me like getting out of my comfort zone even than I wanted it to be. And so I had to put more into the experience to get something new out of the program than I was expecting. If that makes sense, like it wasn't as much as me being like pushed out of my comfort zone as I had to like actually jump out of my comfort zone a little bit. But that, so in order for my study abroad experience to be as rewarding as I wanted it to be, I had to like put that extra effort in to really like branch out and like spend time with my host family's extended family where they're all speaking Danish, and just be okay with that. And but yeah, I would say that's one of the more important takeaways this semester.
Thank you all. And I think your answers really show that, you told us all about the research that you did and how you found your program and how you felt like it was really the right fit for you. And yet you still faced challenges and things weren't exactly as you thought they would be. And that's true for any study abroad program. There's no such thing as the perfect program. It doesn't exist. You're going to find challenges, and believe it or not, those challenges are a good thing. That's part of study abroad. So thank you all. Thanks for all your answers.
And I'll add that you absolutely have support to get through those challenges. I know Hannah and I were in communication as well throughout some of the challenges that she encountered. And, you know, just know that you are not alone at all, and that there are people here supporting you as well. And those challenges are great learning experiences, as you've seen as well. And, you know, given what you learned, now we would like to know what advice you would want to give to students who are going to be at the Study Abroad Fair on September 23rd. Is there a question that you wish you had asked of the different program representatives, or something else you had done to prepare for your fair that you had not done? Why don't we start with Hannah again?
Yeah, I would say just don't go into it with a preconceived idea of what you want or where you want to go. Like, when I was first looking at study abroad schools back in my sophomore fall, I did not think I was going to end up in London or a conservatory school, but because I remained open to all of the possibilities there were, and pushed myself harder than I thought I would be capable of doing successfully, I had a really fulfilling experience. So just give yourself a little more credit than you think you deserve and be open.
Thank you. And Rhea, how about you go next?
I forgot the question. If you can repeat that, please. I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah. The question is, what advice would you give to students who are going to be at the Study Abroad Fair on September 23rd?
I guess also just piggybacking off of what Hannah said, being open to seeing what the possibilities are and really exploring, and not being scared to go out of your academic interest and academic path at your home institution as well, because the program that I went on was a marine biology and oceanography program, and I study studio art and anthropology, so that's clearly out of my field of interest, or out of my field of study. But it was really enriching to be involved in a program that I wasn't studying at, taking courses that I wasn't doing at Wesleyan abroad as well, because I think I came back with a richer understanding of what I wanted my work to be, and also just a richer understanding of the world, and yeah.
Great. And Rose, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I guess I have a really similar sentiment, just to go into it with an open mind, again, knowing how the wide variety of programs that there are in terms of what you can learn, where you can be, how they're formatted and structured, and just go in knowing that, and being excited to discover all those possibilities.
Great. And Zara, what would you like to conclude this question with?
Mine's a little different. I think that my advice would be to start as early as possible. For me, I came across some visa issues, particularly with finding a Czech translator for my documents in America. So I think it's important to start your process early, so that way if you do hit any roadblocks, you sort of have time to sort them out, and you're not stressed out about meeting deadlines. And also to research cultural norms before you get to countries. Turns out Czech people don't like when you pet their dogs. It's a big no-no. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to know. I did not know that. Okay, so we have one more question for our panelists, but for all of our attendees, if you have any questions, because after this last question, we will open it up to you all. Go ahead and pop those in the chat, and then we will answer those. So panelists, our last formal question to you is, when deciding on a program, what support structures were particularly important to you for you to access, and how did you ensure access to these resources? So examples can be academic or tutoring, that was really important to you, or mental or physical health resources, cultural resources and programming, etc. So let's see, how about we start with Zara, if you want to kick us off?
Sure. So one thing that was really important to me, like I said earlier, was safety, and part of that is having access to medical care. And so I would just cold call programs if it wasn't clearly explicit on the website, like what do you have in place to make sure that like if a student is sick or something like that, which turns out very important nowadays. If a student is sick or something, like what is the process? Is there insurance that comes with the program? Would I have to purchase my own international insurance and stuff like that? So don't be afraid to like cold email or cold call people in programs, because like they're usually super helpful and really want to give you that information.
Thanks. Rose?
Yeah, a cultural resource I was really excited about was the homestay program at DIS. And they took it really seriously just in terms of matching students with their host families. And like it wasn't just some like algorithm that was putting people together. I know I ended up meeting one of the women who worked in that office, and she was like, we spent weeks like going through profiles and coming up with like possible matches. So it seemed kind of like a fun thing that they did, to just because they were just clearly very invested in making sure their students who were interested in that part of the program really got the most out of it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Rose. Ria?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
I didn't consider the resources that the program would have available before going in. I definitely should have. Like I should have asked more about the health facilities available, because like I should have prepared better for that, because there weren't many. And just like I think understanding your own limitations and how the program structure would perhaps be limiting in some ways. Like I wasn't a great swimmer, and that's something I didn't communicate to the program, so that was hard as well, and that was challenging when I got there. But surprisingly, I found that the instructors were really patient with like my lack of ability to swim, and I think those are things I should have kept in mind before I went down there, that I didn't.
Thanks. Hannah?
Yeah. So what I knew that I really wanted was a really tight-knit group of students to like form a little community with, like mental health support, and like the opportunity to just go out and experience whatever I could, or like what I could do in my free time. I also should have probably taken more into account how I was going to deal with sickness or injury. I would definitely recommend that you put some time into researching that, because looking back, that would have been helpful at the time.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think this last question, can have a lot of relevance too to the conversation we had earlier about different program models, because I think the reality is that certain support structures and resources can vary depending on which type of program model that you want to pursue, and they can have equally as strong a bearing on your decision as some of the other influences that might impact what program that you want to pursue. All right. So it looks like we do not have any questions yet, but feel free to, oh, I do see one sent to me privately, and the question is, was it hard to make friends? So I think that is a great question overall, just in terms of how you found your own community abroad and how you made connections. Would anyone like to start us off with that question?
I can start us off. So I think one of the reasons activities outside of academics are also super important for study abroad is they give you a chance to really get to know the other people in your program, if you're not doing like a fully immersive school thing. Because I had one of those situations where it was like a group of English speakers situated in the Czech Republic. And I think going to the activities really gave me a chance to get to know my peers and sort of like find my little group of people where it's like, oh, cool, we get along. And I actually still talk to some of the people I made friends with during my study abroad. So I think that's really important. I think also just going out, because I still have friends from the Czech Republic that I made when I was partying. I don't know if that's okay to say on this, but yeah, you go out to parties and you just have a good time, and just to be open with people. A lot of times people, at least in my experience in Eastern Europe, they're like super chill with tourists, and they are like, they think it's kind of funny when you try to speak Czech and it's kind of broken, and they're just really friendly. And so I think that's important. Just put yourself out there, I guess, is like stereotypical advice, but it really does work. Just put yourself out there, you know?
Thank you.
I can go next. I think I was kind of lucky in that my program was so small, and like you're in rehearsals and classes with each other 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, that there's kind of this forced sense of bonding, because even if you hate what you're doing, you all hate it together. Or if you all love what you're doing, you all love it together. So it was really easy, at least in my case, to become close with people and kind of take that to outside of class, to be like, hey, do you want to go down to the pub after class on Friday? Or do you want to go see something at the National Theater? So just kind of being flexible and, again, open with people was really helpful.
Great. Rose or Ria, would you like to add anything?
I think like similarly to Hannah, my program was also structured in a way where it was really easy to get to know people, because it was about 20 of us like on a boat together. So you had no choice but to become friends with the people that you lived with. So you're just like in this isolated space for 3 months. Yeah.
I think also, like, what's cool, what I thought was cool about study abroad is that immediately you know you have something in common with the people that you meet, because you're like, oh, we want to study abroad in Copenhagen, and so quickly I would find like these random connections with people that, again, since this was like my program was all of these American students and a lot from the East Coast, that it was like that we like all had like friends of friends, and it was just like this funny connections that you find just by initially, I think, knowing that you have this like one thing in common makes it easier than to, again, like be open with people, like Zara was saying, and just like, yeah, to get out. It's scary to talk to new people, but knowing you have that baseline of you had this interest in studying abroad, I think was helpful.
Something too, just to say that some of our students, I know I was just talking with a student the other day who studied at University of Edinburgh, and she joined the campus curling team. So like you can join organizations, like join clubs and things like that. That's a great way to meet local students as well.
Yeah, I often hear from students joining orgs that they were never involved in at all in their home campus, maybe just because it wasn't even an option at their home campus.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it can be a really great opportunity to try something new. And I think that really ties along to what we've been hearing from all of you about, really stepping outside of your comfort zone and really being yourself and putting yourself out there as well.
Christiana, I did receive a message too, a question. It is a fun one. What was your favorite part of your study abroad experience? I know that's probably the easiest question. I'm just kidding. That's like the hardest question to ask. I know. So maybe a particular memory that stands out to you from your study abroad experience, if anyone wants to share. See, it's hard. They can't pick.
I guess I can go.
Sure.
I remember it was really hard like transitioning into my study abroad experience, because it was such a different life than the one I'd led back home or like at college even. And I think the hardest part about studying abroad was when we were at sea for really long. So when we'd like go from like an island to another island, we could be at sea for 10 days. And I remember like it was really hard to find purpose in that. But I think some of my favorite moments were when I would just like be alone by the like by the front of the boat, like maybe watching a sunset, and that was enough to like find purpose in what I was doing and remind myself why I was here and what I was trying to get out of it. Especially when like, I don't know, a certain day or like a certain week had been really disorienting and I was feeling really terrible, and I was just like questioning why I decided to spend my summer on a boat in the first place. I think like reorienting and like really just like sitting alone with myself and appreciating like what was around me really helped me like recenter my own thoughts and like realize why I was doing what I was doing, which felt like a big personal accomplishment.
I can go. A big thing for me was my host family. I spent a lot of time with them, and it was a couple and their now 11-year-old daughter and their pug, Bella. And I just had, I think the time I spent with them was really important, and I just got a card from them in the mail, and every so often I'll get like Facebook messages from my host mom sending me like a picture of some deer she saw on her run, which is just really important to me that I was able to like form that relationship with them and feel like I have this other family in Denmark.
I think mine is like a three-way tie. I think one of my favorite parts about being in like Central/Eastern Europe was just like everywhere you look, it's beautiful. Like it's just beautiful. I like even my apartment had like one of those fancy like spiraling staircases, which were hell to go up every morning when the elevator is broken because these buildings are super old. But I lived on the top floor and the view, gorgeous. Like no matter what, you could go grocery shopping and your grocery shopping is in like this very like decadent building with all these like Madonnas, and you're just like, what's happening right now? Like it feels like you're in like an Audrey Hepburn movie. So that's fantastic. I also, which is gross, this is gonna be gross, but I met my current partner abroad and we live together now. So, you know, really be open to people.
Yeah, I have a couple tie as well. I had a really weird walk to school every morning, and it was like 10 minutes of walking through a really old graveyard. And so like every so often you'd go through there in the morning, and it would be all misty and spooky, and you would feel like the last person on earth. And that was just a really fun way to like center myself before going to class. The second was after we finished a first really hard unit of work, the school sent all 48 of us on a trip to Stratford-upon-Avon to like see some plays and do some dumb touristy stuff. So that was just a really nice bonding experience with the other people in my program. Like we all suffered and worked hard together, so we all got to experience a reward together as well.
So thank you
Thank
all.
you. I have two questions that I received. Do you have any, Hannah, or should we just try to get through these two?
I think we can do these two. I am watching the clock and we are at 5:26. So I know we do need to wrap up shortly. So I don't know if each panelist will be able to answer these two, but we can maybe do 2 and 2.
Yeah, or I think actually one of them might be, it's fairly specific. So I'm wondering maybe Rose can speak to this one, and then we can have a couple of you answer the final one. The first one is from a prospective biochemistry major on the pre-med track, and she is nervous about completing requirements. This is a great question. How did you make sure that your classes you took abroad were able to count toward your major and pre-med?
Yeah, so that's actually pretty simple, at least at Wesleyan. I'm not sure if you go to Wesleyan, but that was just something I had to talk to with my advisor. And I found like DIS has their classes all listed beforehand. So the semester before I went abroad, so in the spring of my sophomore year, I looked and I saw there was this epigenetics class that I was really interested in. And I knew that there's a biochem elective at Wesleyan that's epigenetics. So I was able to, so then there's like a form you fill out, and the department head has to approve it. And so it's a pretty painless process, but I would say like, especially if you can find a class that is like clearly comparable to something that your university offers, that's probably easier, but that was just my experience and what I found. But I know, like, I definitely just, so I know DIS has all of their classes online. I don't know how other programs work, but they had a lot of options, or they had at least like a few options that could have easily, I think, been accepted to be, to count towards my major.
Great, thank you. Conversations with advisors is always incredibly helpful and necessary, absolutely, with your planning. And then we have a final question, a pretty big question. What are the benefits of study abroad? And I think it would be great. Maybe we'll just have one of you speak to this. But I think it would be great for you to share what you really gained from your experience.
I can go if nobody else wants to, unless somebody else wants to. I think one of the major things I gained from studying abroad was, so like as a person of color in America and as a second gen, I never thought of myself as particularly American. But when I went abroad, I think I really, and this sounds so corny, but I really got a new perspective on things, and I realized just how Western my thoughts were. And I think study abroad, especially academically, and especially when you study like something partially political like economics, it really shifts your perspective about who you are in the world. And it sort of just opens you up more, and you're seeing, oh, maybe this person isn't a bad person. Maybe I just have to think a different way. Maybe I just have to think from their perspective and see what's going on. And just, it really does change you. If you let it, it changes you. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's so important to recognize that not only do you learn about the country you're studying in and the community you're living in, you learn so much about yourself as well. And not many people expect to learn just as much about themselves as they did about another country. Mm-hmm. I think that's really a good point to highlight. All right, I'll turn it over to Hannah to wrap all of this up.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here with us today. I know we popped this in the chat earlier, but here are all of the 7 colleges study abroad websites. So please have fun, take a look around your school's website, and then meet with an advisor in your homeschool's office to chat about next steps. So make sure you have that bookmarked on your Google Chrome or whatever you use. And then in terms of next steps, review your institution's study abroad policies and options as well before the study abroad fair next Wednesday, September 23rd, which will be from 3 to 6. Make sure you have registered for that too. It is a 2-step registration. So first you'll have to complete a Google form, and then we'll send you a link with further information to access the fair platform that we're using. So before the fair too, take some time to reflect about your own study away priorities. So we had some wonderful panelists here share some of their priorities and what they were looking for in a program. Maybe you have some similar wishes, but maybe yours are pretty different. So whatever that might be, it's good to reflect on those. And we actually did post in the chat just now a questions doc for you to use when you are having conversations with program providers at the fair. But you can go ahead and use that in advance of the fair too, just to kind of figure out maybe what your priorities are. So definitely use those to guide your conversations and reflections prior to next Wednesday's fair. And as always, as we've emphasized a bajillion times, but we can't emphasize enough, do meet with your study abroad office for guidance and support, and know that we are here for you. So with that, we will wrap it up. Thank you all for attending this session. It will be recorded and posted within the Study Abroad Fair schedule. So if you want to reference back and hear about the wisdom that Rose, Hannah, Zara, and Ria said today, you can look back at it later. But thank you all so much for coming, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.